Thanks, Chris, and thanks, everyone. It's a real honor to be here. I want to share some very different kinds of stories. A couple things I want to do is give you a quick overview of the Long-Term Ecological Reflections program for those of you who are not familiar with it, and a refresher for those who are. And I want to comment on the ambitious time frame of the program. I want to read you a poem, and then end with some news about this kind of breakout moment of successes for the Reflections program. So my wife and I celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary on Wednesday. We were walking up Mary's Peak, and I was thinking about family, and I was thinking about what I wanted to share with you today. And it occurred to me that the relationship between the Andrews Forest Science and the National Science Foundation is a kind of a marriage. It's a marriage where you have to renew the vows every 6 years, which pros and cons to that. And that makes us all here a family, the Andrews family. Yeah. Now, this isn't the whole Andrews family. This is just your leadership, but you'll recognize your sits. Here's some more of the family of the Andrews. These are some of the writers in residence that have spent time at the Andrews. These are some of the postures of creative reflection. There's another one. Hope that makes you want to be a writer in residence at the Andrews. But seriously, let me tell you a little bit about the program. It's managed by the Spring Creek Project for Ideas, Nature, and the Written Word. We're in the School of History, Philosophy, and Religion. We get funding from the Pacific Northwest Research Station and support from the Andrews Forest, LTER, including innumerable hours of volunteered time to orient our writers in residence by Fred Swanson. We couldn't do it without Fred. Reflections brings creative writers to spend a week or two at a time to the Andrews, where they explore the forest, engage with the science, and create writing, essays, poems, fiction, field notes. We're now in our 13th year. We host about 6 writers a year. We invite 2 nationally known writers to come, and we take about 4 more by application. They come from all over the U.S. We ask each of them to visit 4 reflections plots in the forest so that they see some representative research sites, and we ask them to contribute some of their writing to our online archive, the Forest Log. We have just selected some of the best pieces from the Forest Log, and this brand new book, which we're very proud of, Forest Under Story, Creative Inquiry in Old Growth Forests, was just published by University of Washington Press. Fred and I and our colleague Nathaniel Brody spent more than a year selecting the best pieces. We added some short essays on the science at the Andrews, which might not be represented by the creative writers. It also includes some gorgeous black and white photographs by Bob Kiefer. Fred has a copy of that book that he can show you later. We actually have some coupons for 30% discount on those too to share with you. So what can we say now that we have had all these writers come and have spent some time sifting through them and select them? What can we say about the kinds of stories that the writers have contributed? Well, while they learn about and include some of the great research stories in the natural history of the Andrews, the stories they tell are mostly different in kind from those the science tells. They're often personal, anecdotal, intuitive. They are richly sensual. They're rife with smells, sounds, and tactile details. And if you read Forest Under Story, you'll see that the writers' stories give expression to values and emotions like wonder and love and anger and confusion and connection, values and emotions that are difficult to make explicit in scientific discourse. Some examples, the writer Vicki Graham regarding the plastic pipe and embossed tags and flagging tape at one active research site, generally referred to as researcher trash, with some visitors find ugly or disrespectful. Vicki Graham saw in it evidence of love, that is, of long-term regard and attention that the scientists paid. Jane Hirschfield turns to direct address, talking to and praising lichens. And Allison Deming, who went out with Steve Akers on a spotted owl survey, spent an hour with one particular owl and felt that a keen relationship developed. She wrote, "We exchanged the long, slow, interspecies stare. No fear, no threat, only the confusing mystery of the other." And an important essay that concludes Forest Understory, Scott Russell Sanders ponders the possibility that human intelligence is not separate from, but continuous with, the intelligence of the forest. So the stories complement and complicate the science stories. Through reflections such as these by our residents, the Andrews family is getting wider and deeper, and maybe a little weirder. Jerry Martine tells a story from the point of view of inanimate objects, and I want to share this poem with you. Actually, these inanimate objects, these logs with the respiration chamber buckets glued to them. So as you look at this photograph, listen to these logs speaking. This is called Return of the Dead Log People. Thank you for your participation in the Blue River Bone Orchard's first Morticultural Conference, the role of the dead in carbon budgeting. But don't think of it as over and done. We are everything that is still to come. All the indignities you're afraid will happen to you happen here. All the mortal invasions you keep from the house of the living, from the porches of your ears, the eaves of your seeing, openings you don't want eaten into, eggs hatching like little ideas in your brain, microbes growing furry, unspeakable words on your tongue, the dark juices of your heart gone to feed the living, upstart salal and Oregon grape, sapling of cedar and hemlock and fir, thriving in our cold, wet breath, perceived by you as a chill in the air, in your bones, those green bones with which you thought you'd walk away from here unchanged. But in your breath now, our breath, and in our breath, these words, which you will remember by a new stiffness in your limbs, a whisper in your many-branched veins, and at last by silence and time, and your dust will rain on us with the rain, and we will take you in as easily as you breathed our air today. We eagerly await your input. Time passing at the Andrews. So these are a few different kinds of stories welling up from the Andrews, particularly evoking relationships and values. I want to make a special word, given the theme today, about the temporal dimension. So what is long-term about it, and what's the point? We intend for reflections to continue for 200 years. You might have seen it on our brochure, 2003 to 2203. We're inspired by the long-term aspirations of the research program, especially by Mark Harmon's log decomposition study, with its provisional estimate that the logs may take up to 200 years to be reduced to constituent elements. We Also, we're mindful of 200 years is something on the order of 7 generations, and looking to the future in that ethical way. The culture needs to think multi-generationally, mega multi-generationally, in the face especially of climate change. If we can't start thinking long-term, then we will likely not be here long-term. So has this point of view had any impact on our participants? Explicitly it has, yes. Many residents comment on the long-term dimension in ways that suggest that their perspective is altered coming into the program. It gives them hope, it brings humility, and it makes them feel a part of something honorable, ambitious, and sane. And they tell us that in so many words. Some have written letters to future residents, and Kathleen Dean Moore, the co-founder of Reflections and of the Spring Creek Project, contributed an afterword in which she addressed hypothetical readers 200 years hence, asking, how does it look from where you stand? Standing in the future and looking back at our efforts today is a humbling act of imagination. It's an invitation to create a community of purpose to sustain the vision, the program, and ultimately the society and the ecology that we depend on. Our very first resident, Robert Michael Pyle, in an essay titled The Long Haul, wrote, "Maybe looking to the future is a way of hoping there will still be something to see when we get there. Maybe it's the only way to make sure of it." So the long-term dimension of the program inspires us, as it does with all of you, to work extra hard to discover or invent ways to make sure the program will continue far beyond our tenure. I want to wind up with a little bit of news about some recent products, some upwellings from the program. It's really a breakout moment for Reflections, and these events are going to bring much favorable attention and goodwill to the Andrews. I mentioned that we concentrate primarily on creative writing in our residency program, but there have also been an increasing number of visual artists spending time at the Andrews, including Leah Wilson, who's made a long-term commitment to create art at the Andrews. Rot, The Afterlife of Trees, the exhibit that recently closed at the Art Center, inspired by Mark Harmon's log decomposition research, was a huge success, and the Art Center is going to do more like it. And we also got this outrageous music project going with the internationally renowned writer, composer, multimedia artist, Paul D. Miller, aka DJ Spooky. We got a big grant from the Oregon Community Foundation. Over the past 18 months, Paul has visited the Andrews 4 times and composed Heart of a Forest, a musical score and multimedia program which will be performed along with some other works next week. And I want to show you this 2-minute trailer.
Well, everything has a key. So this forest isn't a key. If you close your eyes, you hear this sort of white noise. The river behind you is rushing over rocks. The drops of water are creating this kind of like subtle sense of pelting. So how would you translate that into music? This is what I'm trying to figure out while I'm here, is taking things along a path where I can look at what I call making an acoustic portrait. Sound is very elusive and very quirky. If you hear all the stuff around you, translating that into a classical music or electronic music piece is going to be a very big challenge. Much of my work is experimental, so I'm not in any normal traditions. and I'm interdisciplinary, so I'm pulling between different mediums and styles. So as much as possible, I try and say, look, the path has not been made. We are making the path. This is new.
Thank you for having me. I regret I have to take off immediately for another meeting following this. But in the words of DJ Spooky, the path has not been made. We are making the path. I'm honored to walk the path with all of you and to be part of the Andrews family. Thanks.